They told us we were angels. They said we would heal the wounded, bring comfort, serve our country. They didn't say we would watch boys die every day. When I volunteered, I was 21. The posters said, "Your country needs you." I imagined clean wards, white sheets, and a purpose. Instead, I found a world where the sky never stopped screaming. We arrived at the front in France in late 1915. The train carried us through landscapes torn apart. Villages burned, trees snapped like bones. The air smelled of mud, smoke, and something worse. Something you don't forget once you've breathed it. The hospital wasn't a building. It was a tent, canvas walls sagging with rain, the floor thick with mud and blood. The first night, I slept beside the sound of artillery. Each explosion rattled the ground, and with every tremor I realized there was no safe place left on earth. By morning, the wounded came in waves, men carried on stretchers, faces half gone, eyes wide open but empty. We learned quickly that you couldn't save everyone. Sometimes you had to choose who lived and who didn't. That first week, I washed blood from my hands until the water turned pink. But no matter how hard I scrubbed, it stayed. The smell, the memory, the guilt. They called us angels, but angels don't cry this much. Time lost meaning. Day and night blurred under the dim yellow of oil lamps and the unending sound of moans. The wounded arrived faster than we could care for them. We worked until our fingers bled through our gloves. Some nights I didn't sleep at all, just stitched, bandaged, held dying hands. The smell was constant. Blood, antiseptic, sweat, rot. You could taste it in the air. Flies gathered around the wounds faster than we could shoo them away. The doctors were cold, not cruel, just broken. They didn't look at faces anymore, only injuries. They spoke in numbers, not names. We followed orders, even when it meant holding someone still while they cut off his leg with no anesthesia left. I learned the sound of a man dying. It's not a scream. It's a wet gasp, half breath, half prayer. Some soldiers begged to die. Others clung to life with eyes full of terror, as if death itself stood behind me. I whispered lies, that it would be okay, that help was coming, even when I knew it wasn't. One night, a boy barely 16 grabbed my wrist. He pressed something into my palm, a small wooden cross carved by hand. When I looked up, he was gone. I still feel the weight of that cross. It's heavier than anything else I carried through the war. Winter came, and the cold became another enemy. The mud turned to ice, and our breath fogged the air as we worked. We wrapped the wounded in whatever we could find. Torn sheets, old uniforms. Anything to keep them alive for one more night. Outside, the guns never stopped. You could feel them through the ground. The pulse of death, steady and endless. Sometimes, the explosions were close enough to shake the walls of our tent. Once, a shell landed near the ward. It tore through the night like thunder. When the smoke cleared, half the tent was gone. So were 3 patients. After that, we stopped flinching. You get used to anything, even terror. The nurses rarely spoke. We moved like ghosts between the cots. Every face looked the same after a while. Pale, hollow, waiting. At night, when the guns went quiet, the silence was worse. That's when you could hear it. The low groans of the dying. The muffled sobs of men who knew they'd never walk again. Sometimes I covered my ears and still heard them. We stopped writing letters home. What could we say? That we'd forgotten what a whole body looked like? That the ground outside was full of limbs and dreams that would never see another sunrise? The war didn't just kill men. It killed the part of you that could ever feel peace again. By 1917, the war had devoured everything. The land, the people, even hope. The new weapons were worse. Gas attacks filled the tents with men coughing blood, their lungs melting inside them. Their skin blistered, their eyes burned, their screams clawed through the night. We had no cure. Just wet cloths to cover their faces, whispers to calm them as they suffocated. Their fingernails tore the bedsheets. Some tore their own throats. We wore masks soaked in urine to block the gas. It didn't always work. I remember the first time I coughed blood. It tasted like rust. The other nurses pretended not to notice. We all knew what it meant. By then, none of us were the same. We didn't look at mirrors. We didn't celebrate victories. We didn't believe in sides, only survival. One doctor hanged himself in the supply tent. A nurse went missing one night. They found her in the river, her apron tangled in reeds. Everyone whispered shell shock. We didn't have a word for trauma then, but we lived inside it. Every man we lost left a mark on us. We carried thousands of invisible names. When the stretcher came in, I didn't see a soldier anymore. I saw my brother, my father, my lover, all dying in the same light. We stopped being healers. We became witnesses to the death of humanity itself. The war ended on a cold November morning. They said the guns went silent at 11. But in the hospital, they didn't. Our guns were the coughs, the gasps, the cries. They never stopped. Men cheered in the streets. We just stood there, hands trembling, too tired to feel anything. Peace didn't sound like I thought it would. It was just quiet, a kind of silence that pressed against your chest. I stayed to care for the last few patients, men too broken to go home. One of them was blind. He asked me what the sky looked like that day. I told him it was blue. It was a lie. It was grey, heavy, and full of ghosts. When I finally left, I walked past rows of graves, endless white crosses stretching into the fog. No names, just numbers, each one a memory that would never fade. I kept that boy's wooden cross in my pocket. Sometimes I still hold it and feel the pulse of the war beneath my skin, the sound of saws, the smell of blood, the faces of men who never made it out of that tent. They called us angels, but angels don't forget hell, and that is why it sucked to be a nurse in World War I.